Success you carry your weight. There ain't no time to debate. You gotta push through life. All my life, I call it how I see it, just because you need it. All my life, every day and every night we gotta fight. Yeah, we gotta fight it. Fighting for success.
All right, guys, I'm here with one of the greats, especially in recent history, setting the world on fire. And I'm excited to have him in the podcast because I think he has a different perspective than some of the other guys on the world team, and a different story. Someone that I've seen kind of come up through the college system and now obviously the international level, and it's just cool to watch him and knowing a little bit of his story. It's an inspiration for so many people. And I was lucky enough to bump into him and ask him, "Hey man, you want to be on the podcast?" And he was gracious to say, "Yeah, let's do it." And he's putting this in during his training time, so I appreciate it. We got plenty of things to talk about with the accolade stuff, but I want to get to know this man on a personal level. My friend Seth Gross is in the studio. What's up, buddy?
Not too much. Like you said, out here in Colorado Springs, getting some good training in, and yeah, grateful that you just had me out here, get on the podcast and talk a little bit. Always like getting the opportunity, and yeah, this is a sweet setup, so I'm excited.
I appreciate it, brother. I definitely want to get into where we're at now, because obviously Seth Gross at this point is like, he's setting the world on fire, like I said before, but I first and foremost, I want to take it back, man. I want to go back to what was Seth like as a kid? Where'd you grow up? What's that story?
Yeah, so I grew up Apple Valley, Minnesota was kind of my hometown. Minnesota boy, my whole life, and I got into wrestling pretty early. I was 5 years old. My dad's family all had a lot of wrestling. His uncles wrestled. His uncle was pretty good, Big Ten champ a couple times.
Oh, wow.
And then on my mom's side, she had a cousin that was a national champ, and so there's a little bit of wrestling. But my dad wrestled a little bit in high school, and his brothers wrestled a little bit. But yeah, they just loved wrestling, and so he got me into it at a young age. And I was very fortunate because I always talk about youth wrestling coaches and always love giving them the credit, because I had a youth wrestling coach. His name was Rudy, that just absolutely got me to fall in love with the sport.
Okay.
And so right away I jumped in there, and I wasn't great right away, but he was a guy that I was excited to get back to practice every single day, every time, go home, when his next practice. And he was the coach that would stay after for hours and hours and looking back, being a coach now, seeing how, that's not easy. He has a family, he has a life, he has a different job, especially, I know youth wrestling coaches wasn't paying the bills for him, but he was staying for an hour after with a 6, 7, 8-year-old kid at the time. And it was really cool. So I was very fortunate to have a coach that really built that base and made me fall in love with the sport. And like I said, I didn't maybe have super early success. I was okay. I did all right inside the state of Minnesota. And so that was kind of how I got into it. And like I said, I just fell in love with it. It was my spot where I just felt comfortable. And to kind of speed things forward, right? I kept wrestling, obviously, and wrestling was I had a unique relationship with it, because it kind of was my escape. I was a pretty chunky little kid.
Oh, really?
I was pretty. I went through those awkward phases, and when I was in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I was kind of. So I guess give a little bit of the backstory. I lived, technically it was Rosemont.
Okay.
And so I went through their elementary school system. And so I knew my core group of friends was from Rosemont. And then I went over to that. I was on the border of Rosemont and Apple Valley. So I went over to Apple Valley for middle school.
So new middle school, new friends.
So, and as a young kid,
It's tough.
Like, I didn't know anybody. And so I there was a couple guys on the wrestling team that I'd known of and stuff, but I didn't really know anybody. And like I said, I was a little chunky at the time, and they were the only guys I knew. So I kind of jumped in their group, but I was kind of the guy that got made fun of, the kid that got picked on. And so it was pretty tough, but wrestling was always kind of that thing where I felt like I could escape from it. And even though I was a little bit chunky, I was still pretty good at wrestling. So it was like, I felt confident as soon as I stepped in that wrestling room, right? As soon as I walked out of it, real life kind of started coming in. But every time I was in that wrestling room, it just felt like my safe place, my place to just get away, and that's why I wanted to be there every second I could.
Yeah, that's interesting. That I would have never picked you as a kid that you have a little bit of weight issue when you're baby fat and stuff like that. But were you an athlete prior to wrestling? Did you do other sports with wrestling?
Yeah. So I played a little bit of soccer, a little bit of football. Up in middle school a little bit, but as soon as I think 8th grade was probably the last year. But I did do.
Yeah.
My other favorite was probably soccer.
Okay.
That was my favorite other sport to do, and then a little bit of football. But I was right. I wasn't the best football player or soccer player by any means.
But yeah, I'm just curious. Like now, the process of obviously come from a wrestling background, but what made it stick for you? Because 8th grade, obviously, you found your kind of safe haven there. But from 5 on up, why did it stick for you?
Like I said, I really did give a lot of credit because my youth coach really had me fall in love with it. But then I created a lot of really good relationships. That's where all my best friends, that at the time were in that wrestling room. Kids that, I'd go to a youth wrestling tournament, then I'd go sleep over at a kid's house that I knew. And so it was like, right, this was my best friends where we're wrestling. And so it was just, and I was probably the kid that screwed around a lot in practice. I was going live every second, and the coach looks away. I'm throwing in whatever move I can and trying to pin my partner, but I love being there, and I did goof off with my friends a little bit too much, but it was like I said, I just loved it. I loved being there, and that's where my closest friend group was.
That's cool. I like that. Because sometimes you hear the bad story. You get kids involved too early or whatever, but you found your peer group, your friend group, and you found a connection in this sport that was beyond the sport itself, which is cool. You said you find success. Middle school is about where you kind of start turning that corner?
Yeah, I up in 6th, 7th, 8th, I kind of was doing a lot better within the state of Minnesota. Like I was winning most of the freestyle, folk style, like age level states, like the cadet stuff. I wasn't doing great at the time nationally. I think maybe I got 5th at Tulsa once and did all right at a few here and there, but nothing crazy. Like I wasn't on anybody's radar. Watch out for this guy in high school. So I was, and honestly, like I said, I was still chunky. So going into high school, that was a big worry for my coach. I was 125, and like I said, pretty big, and I ended up going, my freshman year, 103.
Oh, so you dropped quite a bit in your freshman year. Yeah. I was wondering, as a 7th grade, 8th grader, are you wrestling like a big kid because you are a big kid? Or are you wrestling like a small kid? How was your style at that point?
I was wrestling, probably a lot more like a small kid.
Okay.
I wasn't like big as in like heavyweights, but I was like, I was just chunky. I was small. I was shorter at the time. I was shorter and chunkier. Yeah. So I was probably at 85, 90, and then as I worked up to 8th grade, I got up to 120 or so. Yeah. And so I was still trying to wrestle like a little guy and doing all that stuff.
And you make the drop your freshman year. Is that a hard cut, or is it kind of? It was pretty hard.
Very, very hard, and that was probably, besides making 57 kilos for the Olympics, that's probably the hardest I cut. And when you're a 9th grader, you don't really know what cutting weight is. So it was like, I remember I thought that it was like I was eating power bars in an apple, and that was like my dinner.
Oh my god!
Like for 3 months to get my weight down, because the season started in September or November or whatever it was, and I started like 3 months before that because we had a state champ returning at 112 and 119, so it was like 103 or you're not in the lineup. Yeah. So I started like 3 months ahead of time, and I'm literally like having like 2 water bottles a day, and that's it for my liquids. Terrible. And I'm having like power bars and apples and that, like eating no real food. And I literally did that for 3 months thinking I was doing the right thing. And I leaned out, but I felt pretty bad.
Yeah, for sure.
And it was not a great experience.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's a good opportunity maybe to speak to that, because obviously you've learned how to cut the weight differently now. When I did the same thing in high school, cut all this weight the most awful way possible. And it actually, I became better at cutting weight than I did wrestling because I was worried too much about my weight. I probably would have been better higher and much better if I would have cut properly. Yeah. But now looking back, did you do well? I mean, did you do well as a freshman?
Yeah, I did. I ended up third place at state as a freshman. But But honestly, I was massive compared to everybody.
True.
And I think that
Cutting
was
down, yeah.
It did help to an extent. It didn't help my wrestling. I don't
Right.
think I got better skill wise, but
Right.
I outstrengthed a lot of guys.
Yeah.
I was bigger than them.
Yeah.
And so I was able to do well at 103. But like I said, there was so many negatives to it. I was
Sure.
no muscle on my body at all.
Yeah.
Like I had to lose muscle.
Were you irritable as well?
Yeah,
I
very,
can
very.
imagine.
Like honestly, looking back, like I even know like my next year, like I don't remember a lot of it. Just how like I was just
Isn't
out
it wild
of it.
though? It'll literally mess your brain up.
Yeah.
Like I have moments in high school where I remember, like you said, wrestling starts like in November. I'll remember football season real well, and I remember like track season real well and all that stuff. But like certain times in wrestling, I'm like, what? But it's like a brain fog.
Yeah.
It's like you're dehydrated. You're not. It's a real thing.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like it literally feels like it's like a missing gap in my memory, like
So
that
wild.
whole time of making weight. And so, yeah, I did all right, but yeah, it wasn't a great experience, and I kind of went away from cutting serious weight for a long time after that, just because, like I said, right, if you really just want to become the best wrestler you can be, weight cutting, especially at that age, is only going to hold you back
For
from your
sure.
skills and your development.
Yeah, and I think also you probably didn't have as much fun, and we're supposed to be enjoying this, right?
Yeah.
It's a sport. It's a sport we're supposed to be playing and having a good time, even though wrestling's a fight in a sense, but it's still supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
Most of the time you're cutting weight, you're not having fun. I was miserable cutting weight, and so your sophomore year, you come in, you're going to go a little heavier. Where'd you end up wrestling?
So I ended up going 120 that next year.
All right, and that's much more natural for you.
Much more, yeah. And I was, still right. There was, I'd say I wasn't in like great shape, but yeah, 120 was pretty easy. And, and still didn't have a very good diet that year. But I was eating a lot more.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, and obviously, what's crazy about that is, I know for myself, and it sounds like for you, we're starving ourselves at the most crucial time in our lives as young men. Like you're going into puberty and all this stuff, and like life, like it gets weird, man. You don't have the nutrition to take care of yourself. I know for a fact, all my family's 6 foot and bigger, and I'm not, but I was starving myself at those crucial times, and I have the Auschwitz ladders or whatever how you call it, but my growth plates never fully expanded, just didn't have the nourishment. Did you feel, is your family tall? Are you about the average in your family?
I mean, my brother's bigger than me. My dad's 6 foot, right around 6 foot. My mom's actually pretty small though, so
yeah, you just kind of.
I'm taller than her.
Yeah,
obviously,
there you go.
But
yeah,
I'm probably middle for my family.
Yeah, but see the way you're built long. So you're built like me. We have like the appendages of a 6 foot person, but it's a kind of telltale sign there for sure. But it helps in wrestling too. I like being the linky wrestler.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So sophomore year, how do you end up at the States?
So I ended up winning state my sophomore year, and actually, to backtrack, right, my freshman year, I get third at state. I go up a weight for Fargo that summer, and actually I won Fargo.
Oh wow!
And that was kind of like my first like big national thing, like kind of out of nowhere. Like nobody expected,
Were you ranked?
No.
Wow.
No, I got like 5th at the state tournament in Minnesota. I went like I want to say like 10-8 at cadet duels. Like. Yeah,
so you're out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere,
and
right, I went 119 at cadet duels, and I ended up going 112.
She dropped down,
and that wasn't terrible,
Right.
but I went 112 for that, so that probably helped a little bit. But yeah, I don't think anybody expected me to even place at it, and I went out there, and it was back when they had the line, or not the line bracket, what do you call it? Where you wrestle 2 pools. I forget what's the name for it. I don't know.
I'm dropping.
But so it was 2 pools, and you wrestle everybody, and so I actually ended up losing a match. Right, I lost to Joey McKenna.
Oh wow!
And then Joey lost to Barlow McGee was his name. I beat Barlow, and so it was us 3 in a 3-way tie, and I ended up. I think I didn't give up a point against Barlow, and so that was
what's the criteria?
Classification points that sent me to the finals. Barlow, since he beat Joey head to head, went for 3rd, and then McKenna had to go for 5th.
Wow.
But so I did that, and so I ended up making it to the finals and got it done that year. But yeah, that's kind of a big confidence shift for me, as far as like everybody kind of has those mental blocks or whatever when it comes to wrestling,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, national stuff versus state stuff.
Yep.
And that was kind of a breakthrough for me.
Yeah, I definitely can see that catapulting your confidence. Now, at the peer level, are you now getting along with the team in your school? Are you fitting in now? Do you feel more comfortable in your new school? I mean, you've been there, you know.
A little. I had my couple friends that I started kind of leaning towards. The older guys, we had an interesting team at Apple Valley. Like we were number 1 in the country my freshman year.
Wow.
Like number 1 team in the country, and it was the older guys kind of not pick. They kind of picked on us, but you know they thought they were hot stuff. So we were the young guys on the team, so it was like.
Yeah.
So our team, but like I said, it was an interesting team because we had guys from all over the country.
Oh, really?
Right, on our high school team, and so it was a weird dynamic. You didn't really know a lot of them that well until they got there, and you start training and stuff. But it honestly was like I was wrestling in a college room my freshman year.
You had a lot of hammers in there.
Yeah, we won 7 state titles that year, 7 state titles, and so it was like I'm training with. We probably had 10 guys nationally ranked on the team. And so it was like everybody wrestled. Like there's no easy days in here. And we're going hard. It was very similar to college practices, like what we were doing in high school. Oh, my gosh. And so, it was
that's
crazy.
Impressive at the high school level. So sophomore year, you come in a Fargo champ. You win it your sophomore year.
Yep.
Junior year, same thing?
Yep.
Senior year, same thing?
Yep.
So you're a 3-timer.
Yep.
And how do you do Fargo those years as well?
So I was a 3-time state champ and 3-time Fargo champ.
That's impressive. That's impressive, man.
Yeah, and actually the 1 year I lost Fargo was my senior year.
Oh, really?
Yep.
To who?
Tough.
Do you remember?
Man, nope, I don't.
Yeah. Well,
I don't. Usually I remember my losses
that's
pretty
the thing
good.
is typically we always remember our losses for some reason. But
But it was, looking back though, it was the 1 year they added a very strange rule. So it was if you took somebody down, if you gut wrenched them and you didn't pop enough on your gut wrench, the other guy would get a point.
Oh, no.
So I early in the match get a takedown. I gut the guy 3-4 times, and I had a trap arm, so I was like not thinking about popping, right? You don't need to do that on a trap arm. And I thought, like, you know, the match's over, and I get up, and right there's he has 4 points or whatever it was, and that was, and then he ended up I wasn't in the best shape going into that one, and he kind of gassed me out and came back and beat me.
Wow.
And that was my one time I didn't win Fargo. Was my senior year.
That's an interesting. I mean, that rule. I mean, obviously it was short lived.
Yeah, it was done after that. It was one and done.
You might have been the reason why they changed it. That's for sure.
It was one and done. It didn't make a lot of sense. Literally doing nothing, getting turned, you get a point.
Yeah, that's interesting. So obviously, you're ranked high coming out of high school. Why did you choose South Dakota? What does that look like from the gun?
So I go to Iowa first.
Oh, that's right. You went.
I go to Iowa.
We'll get to that.
First.
That's right. You went to Iowa first. I want to know that story.
Yeah.
And then we'll go back to South Dakota.
Yeah, and so
the recruiting process. I want to know how that worked first.
Yeah, and so I checked out 4 schools. I checked out Minnesota. I checked out Iowa. I checked out Oklahoma State. I checked out North Carolina. And to kind of preface this, right, I told you how successful Apple Valley was.
Yeah.
We were very hated within the state of Minnesota.
Oh, really?
Like, you go to the state tournament, we're getting booed in all our matches.
Is it because you're private? Or
we weren't private.
Oh, you're not private.
That's why, we had...
How do you moving these kids in? Just people...
in Minnesota, as long as they move in within the district boundaries, you're good. And
people know that you're good. They want to come.
Yeah, and it wasn't like we were necessarily going out and...
No, but you're good.
Yeah, people wanted to be there. Yeah. So, but everybody in Minnesota,
sure,
wanted us in trouble for it, and so we were getting booed at the state tournament. And our big rivals were St. Michael, Albertville, and I remember all their guys were committing to Minnesota.
Yeah,
and so honestly, getting booed in the state and those guys going to Minnesota kind of pushed me away from wanting to go.
That makes sense.
Be a Gopher.
Yep.
Which is interesting because I grew up, right? I was a big Gopher fan. I went to their duels. I was, CP and Dustin Schlater. I love those guys and watching the team grow up.
Yeah.
And right, I kind of didn't feel that way when I got to the recruiting process. And
you see, Minnesota, don't boo people.
Yeah, and I kind of got the Apple Valley vibe at Iowa. They're a team that gets booed a lot of places and pretty hostile.
For sure.
And, I went there and the atmosphere in the room was awesome.
Did you like that version? You like that tough grind, punch in the face?
Yeah. And at the time I walked in there, I remember on my recruiting visit, and I see Thomas Gilman and Corey Clark scrapping, Brent Metcalf, Tony Ramos, and I was like, man, this is right around my weight. I would have the best partners out there, and my sole focus at the time is I want to be the best wrestler in the country, in the world. I want to. I want to do this. So it was a no-brainer. I was like, it's got to be Iowa.
Yep. So they recruit you, and you go in. What's it like in the room when you first get there?
Intense.
Yeah.
Right? It's pretty similar to what you'd imagine, right? It's hard. It's the coaches are on you. They a lot of workman-like stuff, right? They did try to, looking back on it, right, shift my style a lot, because
I wondered that.
Kind of going through my whole career, right, it was kind of get your legs back. Don't let guys get to your legs. Don't let guys get to your legs. And, right, throughout high school, I'm hearing that. You got slow feet. And, right, I get to Iowa, and that's kind of – they focused a lot on changing that. Like, they had me after every practice doing a million sprawls and fast feet and different things. Like, you can't let guys get to your legs. And so they tried to change that part about me. That's kind of where I made a living, was always that. And they tried to take that away a little bit, and so I did what my coaches told me at the time. And so I think, instead I didn't necessarily focus on developing where I was already good.
Yeah.
I kind of tried to change myself a little bit, so I think that held me back for a time, but I didn't notice it as much because I was just in the meat grinder and trying to work my way up the ladder, right, getting beat up by guys and, scoring points on, Brent Metcalf, and then he digs your head in the mat for the next hour and you can't get up. And so it was fun. Like that. That's kind of how it was for me in high school, right? I came in and all these state champs and this, and I'm getting my butt kicked, and it always just, how do you work your way up just a little bit each day? How do you get to the top of the ladder? And so that's kind of same thing. I get there and wasn't that good at first, wasn't getting many takedowns, and slowly by the end of the year, I was scrapping. I remember I wrestled off our 141 pounder. I was a guy that, right, I don't think many, a lot of people don't take that redshirt freshman year super seriously, right? It's, I'll do it next year, but I was in there. I want to wrestle him off. I want to get the 141 spot, and I want to go do this year. And we had a top 10 guy at 141, and we wrestled off, and I think he beat me the first one, and it was close the second one, and ended up losing like a 1-point match.
Wow.
So, but it was good, right? I was in there competitive, and it was, it kept me hungry all year. And so it like I said, it was really good. And my body was finally, even my senior year in high school, I was not in, I was still had a little fluff on me. I wasn't strong. I never lifted weights in high school. So they kind of strained, I was putting on some strength. I was putting on some muscle. I was leaning out quite a bit, and things were going well. I actually, I was 12-4 my redshirt year, and I ended up getting injured. And it was kind of a freak little injury that happened at the same, like, guy was kind of crackdown position, and he like lifted up here, but at the same time like pressure on my knee, and so I like chipped a bone in my knee and in my ankle at like the same time.
Oh my gosh, that's
and
weird.
So it was extremely just a kind of freak little thing that happened, but I had to get an entire boot like all the way up to like my thigh, and so my leg was stiff. And that was the first time in my life I'd really had a really bad injury that I had to take a substantial amount of time off. And so, like I said, up to this point, life was wrestling. And then it was like, what do I do now? I could do some rehab. I could get on and bike with my arms. And so that got boring. I mean, not boring, but like that got hard for me because all I wanted to do was be on the mat. That's all I'd ever known. That's all I really cared about. And so wrestling got taken away, and I didn't know what to do. And that was kind of right before season's coming to an end. I want to say February-ish time. So season's coming to an end. I can't wrestle. I remember I was in a dark spot, and even the coach called me in, like, are you all right? Like, what's going on? Do you even want to be here at this point? Like, you don't seem in it. And because I'm getting on the bike, and it's terrible.
Yeah, of course.
And I explained, like, it sucks, and this injury sucks. I've never been injured before, and that first injury, I think for anybody is pretty tough to deal with. But I was like, I want to be here. It's just I need to get healthy. But I ended up, yeah, like I said, it was just tough for me, and I ended up kind of making, I wasn't drinking. I didn't drink much once I got to college. I had a phase in high school where I drank for a little bit. Parents kind of caught on and put an end to it quick, but I actually didn't drink at all that first whole part of college, and then I get injured, and I still didn't drink, but I started hanging around, going to parties, but not drinking at first, and so I'm kind of right. I had nothing else to do. I'll go chill at the party. I'll go be around it. I won't do it, but eventually, you give into peer pressure, and you want to be, look cool or whatever it is, and so one night I end up drinking for the first time while I'm in college, and I get messed up. Like not to get into too much detail, I think we started at drinking at maybe 3. This is after like the starters had just left for the NCAA tournament. Just left, and it was like there's no structure here. Like, all right, let's go. Like, this is the red shirt time. And let's go have some fun. And so we started early in the day, and I remember at like 3 or 4, and I like drank a little bit, and I got messed up fast. Like, I passed out on the floor for a while, like from like 5 to like 6 or 7, and then I woke up and drank again, and it was bad. And so then that same night we ended up, like, whatever reason, going out in the neighborhood and making some dumb mistakes where we were just going into people's cars, and we were taking random stuff, like pulling the cords out, ripping, taking whatever was in there, and this was probably 9-10 o'clock.
Oh, so early.
Like, this wasn't like, sneaky in the middle of the night type stuff. This was like,
oh my gosh,
you guys are absolute idiots. What are you doing? Like, and so obviously it's 9 or 10. People aren't sleeping at 9 or 10. So we're in the middle of doing this, and a dude comes out and like, what are you guys doing? And he chases one of the guys down. I like run and hide, and we end up getting caught by obviously the police come. We get caught, and goes downhill from there. They charge, and we dropped everything. And so we dropped everything. We ran, and then the police found us a little later, and we denied everyone. It wasn't us, right? We get brought in, we get questioned. Wasn't us, and they told us, you guys come clean now. Like, we're gonna charge you with one thing, and we can kind of figure this out. And we wouldn't say anything. Nobody said anything. So then we end up getting in trouble, and they go back and every single thing that we took from every car was like a separate charge, everything. Wow. And so we end up getting charged with like 13 accounts of misdemeanor burglary and conspiracy, and one, I think there's a couple felony ones in there.
Wow.
So we get all these charges. We didn't know this at first, right? We're just in jail. We get put in jail, and this was St. Patrick's Day, and I had never really been in trouble,
right?
And I get put in jail. I wasn't a guy to drink, and I remember first thought was, why me? Why God? Why would you do this to me?
This is your first night partying?
Yeah, and since high school, right? Since high school, like I stayed away from it, and then my first time doing it at Iowa. That happened, and I'm like, wow, how?
Yes.
And so I'm sitting there, and we get put in a cell. Like I said, it's St. Patrick's Day. There's 30 dudes in one cell.
Yeah.
And big dudes, scary dudes. And I remember they throw me like a tiny little blanket and lock you in on there. And I hear all these guys talking about like, oh, it's my 3rd time here this week. I punched this cop in the face. And all these things.
Wow.
And I'm just sitting there like, where?
It's scary.
Yeah, and I'm an 18. I just turned 18. March 15th was my birthday, and then this is like the day after.
Literally, this turn.
Yeah, 18. So this is like so crazy, and
that's insane.
And so we get in there, and other crazy thing. This is in Iowa. If you can't make any out of state phone calls.
I was gonna say, who did you call?
And so I'm sitting there. I don't even know. Like, I didn't have my phone on me. They took my phone. I don't have my phone on me. I don't have anybody to call. Luckily, there was another guy that was in there with me that he was able to call his dad. But, like, I couldn't call my mom and tell her what was going on. Call my dad. I could call anyone. And so nobody in my family knew what was going on that night. And luckily, like I said, the other kid called his dad. His dad vaguely mentioned to my parents, like, because he didn't know what was going on either. He's like, why are you guys in? And my buddy's like, oh, we were drinking, right? Didn't say much about the other stuff. And so at the time, right, nobody knew what was going on. And so we get out, and obviously one of the hardest calls I have to make is call my parents and calling coaches.
Yeah.
And
So you made to call the coach?
and so it's kind of not complicated, but complicated at the time. Like I said, they didn't charge us for the burglary stuff, but there's 3 of us. One of the kids didn't get charged with anything originally.
Okay.
But I got charged. I tried to run away from the cops, so they charged me with that. So that's why I had to go to jail. And then the other kid was driving, so drinking and driving. So he was. But the third kid didn't actually have to go to jail right away.
Okay.
So he was out, and he was able to. The coaches knew.
Yeah.
And his family knew a little bit. They didn't. Once again, they didn't know about the extent of it.
Yeah.
And everything. And I remember we ended up, kind of the 3 of us talking, like, we got to tell coach what happened. Like he's got to know the details. And so we ended up telling our parents, and still probably not. I mean, I probably didn't tell them everything. Oh, we, went into some cars and we got in trouble or whatever.
Yeah.
But we tell them, and we get suspended from the team. Like, hey, until this is figured out, like, you guys are suspended, and maybe once the court stuff gets done, right, we'll let you back on the team. But I'm in like a dark. Like, I don't even know what, like I said, the hardest phone call, like calling my parents, and just hearing, the disappointment, then I don't think they even believed it right away. They're like, what? You're
not that kid. Like you guys, you hadn't been in trouble before then. So
and so and like I said, I was in a dark place at the time. So I remember, like, I was getting through school, but my mom, my girlfriend at the time, were driving to Iowa, picking me up, bringing me home, because I only had class 4 days a week. So I was back in Minnesota 3 days a week. I'd go to my class and get out of there, just because, like I said, I was in a tough spot. I didn't want to be anywhere around it, and we get teased for, like, by the other guys on the team for getting caught, and didn't hear the end of it, and then other guys just wouldn't even talk to us, and so it was just like, it was tough. And I don't obviously blame the coaches for anything, but you need somebody at that time to kind of help you out and
navigate it.
And that's kind of right. And like I said, I don't blame the coaches, but one of the guys that got in trouble was my weight, and he beat me that year, and he was on no scholarship, and I was on a full ride. And so it seemed like, as things kind of went along, that they were okay keeping him, but they didn't seem like they were interested in having me there. At least that was right. I could be completely.
You felt that way.
That's how I felt. Right. I felt like they don't really want me back, even if things get cleared, they don't really want me on this team, and just that's how I felt. And when you feel like that, it's hard to ever consider going back. And so I was like, I got I'm gonna finish up school here, and then I'm gonna figure out what's next. And
was wrestling kind of at that point kind of done for you, or?
Yeah, it was fine. Like I said, it was everything before. Now it's like a second thought.
Yeah.
And my mom kind of pushed me, like, hey, you should try to do something, like try to wrestle or do something to keep you in a straight, keep your head straight. And I did try to wrestle I put on a lot of weight, and I tried to wrestle up at like 65 kilos when I was, or I think heavier than that. Like,
wow.
And so I think I went to Northern Plains, or not Northern Plains, I don't know, some tournament I went to, got my butt kicked, and it's like, I'm not doing this right now until I get a spot to train. And so I move home that summer, and I go in and I start working at Target. I'm selling cell phones. I'm gaining a lot of weight. I'm not wrestling. The court stuff's just crazy. Like, lawyer doesn't know how it's going to turn out. Like, you could actually go to jail for years.
Wow.
Like that's the stuff. Like, obviously they want to be, they don't want to get you hopeful that it's going to turn out good.
Right.
So they kind of give you the worst case scenario, but he's like, you could be looking at some serious stuff here. And so that's really my life, was go to work and then think about that. Like,
golly,
like what?
And you're 18. Man.
Yeah, I'm young.
It's like, you can't even process that at 18. I mean, there's people that are in jail, but a kid like you that's, a good student, doing good in wrestling, not making the mistakes. I mean, that's a lot, know?
Yeah. And to talk about a whole nother aspect of it that killed me, like, I was pretty outspoken about my faith on social media back then.
Oh, right.
And even like, I remember somebody from my school, like, I can't believe I went to school with this kid.
Nuh-uh.
How does this guy call him God's wrestler? And right. So it was, as soon as the article hit Flow, right, everybody in the community sees that. And right, I'm getting picked apart. And I remember my mom and my aunt were like, you got to get off of
Yeah.
social media. And I still snuck on, read what people were saying, probably a little too much,
Yeah.
but right, you're hearing those things from
Yeah.
people. You're already, you don't know what's going to happen in court.
Sure.
So it was just, like I said, it was eating and working and not doing much. And
What's the turning point? I mean, did the charges get dropped? Do you do community service? What happens?
so as far as the court case, that stuff took for like year and a half
Oh,
before it was
wow.
like figured out. And so that was kind of the problem. I was trying, even while this was going, I was like seeing if there was any opportunity for me to wrestle.
Yeah.
And I remember I'd basically committed to Minnesota. I was like, they said, hey, come here. And then I thought I was going there. Like, I thought I was going to Minnesota and, be close to home. This will be perfect. I can kind of get my foot under me, have my family support, and get things going again. And then their AD was like, we don't want that guy.
Oh, wow.
We don't want that baggage.
And that was like late?
That was late. Like,
Wow.
the coaches were pretty hopeful that I could get in. And then right there, like, no. And then the other school I was looking at too, after that, I was trying to talk to UNI, and it was the same thing. Like, maybe you could come go to school here, and then hopefully after a year or so we can get you on the wrestling team. And I was like,
yeah, that's tough.
I can't do that.
No.
And so after those two schools kind of denied me, I made the assumption that that's how it was going to be everywhere. And so I was like, I'd given up. And so the turning point was kind of, I remember I was working one day at Target, and my aunt was like, hey, can I come have lunch with you? And she came in and sat me down and kind of just was straight up like, do you still love wrestling? At first she was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I'm working. Maybe I'll get into community college, and I don't know,
Wow.
and I'm saying that stuff. And she's like, well, don't you like wrestling? I was like, I mean, yeah, but nobody out there, wants me on their team. And she was like, she had like the number of D1 schools. So she was like, you've talked to every 72 teams already. Like, they all don't want you.
Right.
I was like, well, all the ones close by, and I don't know if I can go far away. And she's like, well, there's this school within this, and there's this school. Like, if you love wrestling, why don't you exhaust every option that you have?
Yeah.
And I was still up in the air, because like getting denied by two schools was
That's tough.
another hard thing.
Yeah, it's tough.
like I said, I made the assumption that that's how it was going to be anywhere, and I don't know if I could keep getting that no. And so I kind of convinced me, like, hey, the worst they could say is no. Like then you don't go there and nothing happens, right? But at least you tried. And so we kind of sat down, my mom, my aunt, my family, my dad, and kind of just listed out all the possible options that are within like 10 hours or whatever it was. And South Dakota State, I didn't even know before looking them all up. I didn't know it was Division I school.
Yeah.
And so stumbled across that. I was like, all right, we can shoot him a message. And so I emailed Coach Bono, telling him my situation. And within 5 minutes, he was like, hey, I know your story. I know everything about you. Let's get you out here to check out South Dakota State. And so I didn't get my hopes up right away, just because, like I said, the other situations. But I was like, all right, I'll come check it out right away. And I think within 24, 48 hours, I was on my way to Brookings, South Dakota to go check it out. And I drive on down, and right away, I don't even show me around, nothing. I go straight, because I had short time to get back. So I drive there. It was because of like probation stuff. I couldn't be in a different state for that long, and go there. I meet in his office, and the first thing he just said, tell me what happened. And with all the court stuff going on, I probably wasn't supposed to be very open about it, but I looked him in the eye, and I told him to all the little details, everything from start to finish, what happened that night. And I was like, but it'll never happen again. That's not me. That's not, you'll have zero problems with me. And he was like, he could tell that I was being honest with him. And he was like, well, here's the deal. I've already talked to our AD. I've talked to the people I need to talk to. If you want to be at South Dakota State, we'll take you here. Wow. And you can wrestle right away, no problems. I was like, what about my pen and stuff? Nope, already, you're cleared. You can wrestle here. But one little strike and you're gone. And I was like, you will have zero problem with me. And I didn't want to commit on the spot. I was feeling like that on the inside. But so I was like, all right. And I'll get a hold of you soon. And I remember going down in the car, and I was right away calling my mom. I was like, this is where I got to be.
Wow.
For whatever reason, this is where I got to be. And on my way home, I remember that same night I called back, and I'm like, I'm in.
Wow.
I'm in. I'm going to be a jackrabbit. So
yeah, that's a crazy story. I mean, it's just such a roller coaster for you, you know, just going through all that. How is your, I mean, you talked about being, you know, God wrestler at that point, but how is your faith at that point? I mean,
yeah, and right, that's a huge part of the story, because there's no way without, you know, my relationship with God that I would have gotten through that too. But like I said, when I got put in jail, it was a lot of why me?
Yeah, sure.
You know, why God? And I hadn't even developed a relationship with him before that, right? I grew up going to church, going to Bible studies, but it was more my parents were bringing me, I'm going to do it. And so I never really talked to him. I never prayed that much. And now when I turn to God, it's because I'm in this terrible, why would you do this to me? And God's like, who are you?
Yeah, right.
Yo, now you want to talk to me? But right, so that's how I was at first. And so I'd say the first few weeks, it was like I wanted nothing to do with God and creating that relationship. And for whatever reason, I ended up, you know, while I was back home, I started going to church. And through all that, I kind of finally started talking to God and creating that relationship. And actually, and for, you know, this time it was myself doing it, right? I was making this choice to create this relationship. And I didn't really say much to my parents about that at first, but right, I was just doing it myself. I was reading the Bible a little bit more. I was praying a little bit more, and just reading a lot about the grace of God. And
it's good.
And that was one thing that helped me a lot with, you know, the things people are saying about me, the stuff going on, that all those people might persecute me, but God forgives me. Yeah. Right. He doesn't care what I did. Right. He's already forgiven me. Yeah. And so that was big for me. And, you know, and that was kind of, my aunt talked to me, but at the same time, it was like, you know, one thing that I thought after that conversation with my aunt is like, God's blessed you with some wrestling talent, right? Mm-hmm. It's your job to go use those talents to the best of your ability. Yeah. And so that was a big, you know, part of it. Like, you know, God's blessed me. I got to go, you know, do it. And I remember another thing that my family said was kind of like, your life's going to look a lot different a year from now. Yeah, and that was always the focus. That's good. Right? Like, things look tough. They look, you know, terrible, but 1 year from now, it's going to look a whole lot different. Yeah.
We lose perspective of that so much too. Just when we get through stuff. I mean, my wife and I have been married for 23 years, and sometimes you get into an argument, it feels like this is the truth, this is the reality, and it's literally a blip, you know. And it's we make so many bad decisions based upon a temporary situation or temporary emotion, you know. It's good that you have people in your ear reminding you that, you know. That's great advice just for anybody that's listening. Just make sure that you don't get so caught up that like you said, a year will be completely different, you know. And
that, you know, you see that in wrestling a lot. Like, people want that instant success. They want this now, or they're going through something, and it's like, just put your head down, and for 1 year is going to look a whole lot different.
That's true. That's what I love about the sport too. It's like everything mirrors, you know, life. You know, I've learned so much through the sport of wrestling on how to be a man of faith, a husband, a father, you know, a lot of business and all those things. They all translate, you know, which is partly what we're doing this podcast, is because I want people to understand that even if you're not a combat athlete, you can take the same principles and apply them to your life and find success.
Absolutely.
Going back to South Dakota State, you were there, you get in the program, the lineup right away. It's your true freshman year.
Yeah, so this is right.
It's your first year,
first official year of eligibility, and right. This is right. I get past one obstacle, but now there's another big one, right? I'm 170 pounds. Yeah. I haven't wrestled in 6 months.
How's your leg?
Right.
Is it healed up?
And so that was healed up. That ended up healing up
pretty nicely.
Yeah. So there was no right. That was like like I said, some chip bones. And I had that thing on for a while, but it got better. And but I'm 170 pounds. Wow. And I remember I didn't check my weight at all. And I remember I got there, and Bone was like, what do you weigh? I was like, 155. not thinking about it, because I never weighed more than that in my life. Yeah. And one day I wrestled him, and he was like, dude, you're not 155. He's like, let's get on the scale. And so after practice, I get on the scale, and after practice, I was like 168.
Oh my gosh.
Like, and I,
Yeah,
pretty big.
for
You sweat
sure.
pretty good, so I might have been heavier than that at the time. But right, very out of shape, big, right. And so that was a journey, right? I ended up going 141 that year, but it was, and I'll tell you guys a funny story, right? A moment right, I get there, and there was a lot of running. I wasn't used to that or whatever, but one day the coaches aren't there, but they tell us, like, after practice, you got to run. We did this thing where we'd run to Perkins and back. It was maybe a mile and a half there, a mile and a half back. I'm dying after practice. Like, this is terrible. And we all get done. We all put our shoes on, and everybody starts running, right? They're going, and I'm in the back of the pack. There's this little woods in the, right to the side here. And so everybody starts running. I kind of hang low for a little bit. I go in the woods.
You peek out in the woods.
I just hide in the woods. I just sit there. And I just wait till everybody, they got to come back the same way. And so I wait. And me being not very smart, I jump out like I'm one of the top dogs.
Oh, no.
And make a little sprint at the end. Like, if you're gonna do something like that, at least wait till everybody's done and come in last. But I jump out, act like I'm all fast, and everybody's pissed. Right?
No,
like, what are you doing? And blah, blah, blah. And there was another like volunteer assistant at the time. He's like, what?
Yeah.
Like he called Bone and was like, run with him. Make sure he runs the whole thing. So this volunteer assistant runs me all the way. We do it, and so that was a funny story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was out of shape. I was slow. I was running back with the heavyweights for a long time, but kept showing up, right?
Yeah,
kept showing up, and it got a little bit better each day. The weight started coming down. I was lifting, getting a little bit stronger, and right, you do the right things for long enough, you get back in shape.
Yep.
And I went 141 that year, and that was probably more so because, right, I was 170, making it down to 33 just wasn't something I could do in that amount of time. So I wasn't the biggest. I was pretty small, actually, for 41 once I got my weight down. And by the end of the season, it was easy. And, but got down. And first half of the year was super rocky. Like, I had a losing record. I think I lost my first 6 home matches, something like that. And we actually had a really tough schedule. I lost every home duel I wrestled was like a top 15 guy.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't like I was losing to the worst guys, but it takes a toll on you going in there and not even having a home win. And all right, these guys gave me a second chance, and now I'm falling short. And and it was tough. And I remember halfway through that year we went to Iowa State Open, and I go down there, I get beat by an Iowa guy, and then I get pinned by a JUCO guy, beat out of the tournament. I remember coaches just looked at me like kind of shaking their head, and I remember after that I kind of met with my dad. I was like, I don't know if I'm meant for this Division I stuff anymore. Like I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I suck. Like basically, and he kind of just said, you didn't wrestle for 6 months.
Huge.
You didn't. Right, you have been out of the sport for a while. Right, just focus on enjoying each day, showing up every day, and take it a day at a time. Right, and he's like, you got to get through this year. If you still feel this way, let's talk about it again. But right, do everything in your power to finish this year strong and see what happens. Make your very best effort. And I was like, all right, I'll get through this year, but I still don't think this is for me. Yeah. And I kept showing up. Things started getting a little bit better. And I remember one kind of confidence booster, right? Like everybody always goes home maybe for a week during Christmas. And I made the decision myself, like, I'm going to stay here all Christmas break. I'm not even going to – I went home the day of Christmas and then drove back. So I saw my family for a day. And that kind of gave me a confidence booster. Like, I did something that nobody else in the country did. Like, I'm ready. Let's go try to do this. And second half of the year, I did fairly well. I got third at Big 12s and ended up going round of 12 at nationals. Yeah. And so I only lost after break. I only lost 3 matches. Wow. Lost to Solomon Chisco, Anthony Ashnall, and Dean Heil. So those were the 3 guys I lost to that second half of the year. But had some good wins, and kind of got the confidence. And that was kind of when we made the decision, though. Right after that, there was the junior world team trials, and it was like I was weighing like by the end of NCAAs like 139.
Oh wow!
Like making weight was like. Nothing. I couldn't even keep the weight on, and so they were like, why don't you go 60 kilos? And I was like, Okay.
Yeah.
I don't see why not. Like, it's only whatever 6-7 pounds away. Like, let's do it. And I made it, no problem. And right away at that weight, I felt strong. I felt quick. I felt, I had some fat at 141. So when I got that down, it was like, man, this is my weight. I feel really good here.
Yeah.
And I ended up making a junior world team. And so that was another just kind of turning point where confidence just kind of went up.
Were you a better freestyle wrestler than you were, like a folk style wrestler, or is it because you sounded like you had some pretty good success there, even in high school?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you ask me high school going into college, like freestyle was definitely like, man, this is my style.
Yeah, your style fits that real well. Yeah. Obviously, you had a lot of success at the college as well, the folk style as well, but it just seems like being able to be creative and not that's your kind of your thing, you know. Yep. So yes, now you're in your sophomore year and you're hitting your stride with your weight. Everything's good. You have a great sophomore year. Anything stand out that year for you?
Right. It was like I said, I was finally at a weight I felt really good at, and right, I had all the confidence. I didn't do good at Junior Worlds, but I knew, give me more time at this weight, I'm gonna do this, and so I end up losing 2 matches that whole year.
Yeah.
I lose to Eric Montoya at Midlands, and then I lose in the finals.
Yeah.
Corey Clark.
Yep.
And, like I said, I don't like to take anything away from Corey, right? He's amazing, but I didn't wrestle how I could wrestle in the national finals. It was like leading up to that, it was, right, Seth Gross, redemption story, Seth Gross versus Iowa, and every camera in my face was talking about that, and so by the time the finals came around, just mentally, I was not there.
Yeah.
Like, you watched me that whole year, I had unlimited energy, like, never once got tired. I was exhausted after a minute in that match, like, dying.
It's adrenaline dump and all that.
Yeah. It's like you got just your head spinning, thinking about things all the time. And like I said, I got get in that match and I die. Like I gas out.
That's
and I've
wild.
never gassed out that whole year. And the 2 guys I wrestled, like, in the semis, in the quarters to actually beat Corey, like, the last 3 weeks of season. And it was like, I just couldn't do it. And I remember walking off the mat just like so confused. Like,
that's one of the worst. That's like the worst feeling. It's like knowing that you're better than what you did, but you can't put it together. It's terrible. Was the Iowa people? How were they with you?
They were fine.
Were they?
It was like I said, every camera, everything.
Yeah, it's all in your face.
And I said I got exhausted in the match, but right after the match, I remember I was so just frustrated and sad. I go cry for a little bit, and then I just got on a bike and literally just biked for an hour straight.
Wow, because you had the energy, you just couldn't couldn't find it. Yeah, it's a terrible feeling.
Yeah, and I go bike until I can't bike anymore, and lay there for an hour, and I was pretty hurt.
But it's an incredible season, nonetheless.
Yeah.
And then you go in your junior year, last year at that university. I remember your junior year because you and Bryce Meredith did like a it was like in my mind, it was the first super match. It was just, I don't know, it was a cool matchup. He came, you went up?
Yep.
You went up to wrestle him. Yep. That wasn't, I thought that, I think I paid to get that match because it wasn't being aired. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I like this kid because he's taking the challenge. Bryce was, hot, at that weight class. You were great at yours. And it just, I don't know. It was a really cool event. Great match. Going back to that, what was the thought of that? Did you know Bryce? How was that?
So it's kind of a funny story, right? Because really going into that match, it wasn't really at first even a thought.
Oh, really?
Hey, we're gonna wrestle, and then I remember like somebody put out a graphic or whatever, and it was a picture of me and Bryce, just because we're the on our programs we're kind of the two guys that people knew pretty well, and so it was just a promotion thing, and I ended up posting it on my social media or whatever, and Bryce like posted it or whatever, and he said something like me versus Seth Gross. And it was a joke. Kind of blew up though a little bit, and people were talking about it, thought it was a thing, and when it wasn't really a thing at first. And right, Bono was pretty good at promoting a program, and so he kind of blew it up too. He didn't really think it was a thing either, but he was like, I'll retweet this and let's go, and kind of give it a little bit of energy, get people talking about the two programs. And so, people are going back and forth. It's not really happening. It's happening. And whatever reason, I went into Bono. I was like, why not?
Oh, really?
Why? And I actually messaged Bryce like, dude, let's freaking wrestle, man.
That's cool.
And he was like, I'm about it. Like, I'm obviously, let's freaking wrestle.
Yeah.
And so still people were still skeptical, like, no way this is happening. And
yeah, you think the night of when they were doing commentary, it wasn't like a full knowing.
Oh yeah.
Because you guys, they held you off for the last.
Yeah, and so that was the cool thing. Like, and it was still kind of up in the air. Like if our team needed it, right, he was gonna put me out there at 33. But shoot, I'm blanking on Wyoming's coach's name.
Oh shoot, you asked me on the spot.
But he agrees to wrestle 41 last.
Yeah.
Like, that was a big thing at first. We didn't know if he was gonna do it, and he's like, yeah, we can do that last.
Yeah, because the duel itself was potentially a close duel.
Yeah.
On paper, but if I remember correctly, though, you guys were out pretty decently.
No. So
was it the other way?
This is kind of a cool story in itself, actually. No, we were winning, but it comes up and it's like still a close duel, and so we didn't have really a decent backup 33. We actually had a guy who walked on and never wrestled a single varsity match his whole career, but good kid.
Yeah.
And their 33 pounder was pretty good. He was like number 8 in the country. Yeah. So it was like, what are we gonna do if he puts it on our 33 pounder?
Yeah.
Like, they win, and then Bryce wins. It's a tie match, and so Bono was like, all right, let's do it. And we send this guy out, like, he never wrestled the varsity match, but he goes out there against Montori Bridges, and he holds it to a major.
Yes.
He holds it to a major, and the crowd's like, he's doing laps, cheering after, and it was such a cool moment. But he's getting a round of applause, and right now everybody knows, like, this is happening.
Yes.
And so it comes into the match, and I think Bryce had to tech or pin me for them to win the duel.
Yeah.
And so so then it happened, and then the super match, and the reason why you don't see that used to happen every now and then.
Yeah, every once in a while.
But the reason it doesn't happen now is because they make you weigh in at the so I had to weigh in at 133.
Right.
Yeah. Otherwise, my descent plan, I couldn't wrestle it. I think we had a duel maybe that Sunday.
Yeah, you could.
This was on a Thursday night or like a middle of the week.
It was, yeah.
And so if I would have weighed in at 36, I wouldn't be able to wrestle in my next one.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so that's kind of right. That's why it doesn't happen as much.
Gotcha.
Right. It would be a little easier if guys could, I could weigh 140
jump
and
down,
not cut anything and wrestle the match, but you gotta make
make weight. Yeah, it was a good match. What did you? Because you had never wrestled Bryce before, had you?
I wrestled him actually twice the year before. So that was
you had wrestling because he was
41.
He was at 41. That's right. You
41.
You had seen it at 41.
So the last year he beat me in our home arena, and then I beat him at Big 12s.
That's right. You split. Now it's coming back to me now. Yeah, that's right. I remember that now. So that even made it even more interesting.
Yep.
That match, but the match, obviously, you're a lot lighter. You're cutting weight, but you wrestled great.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a awesome match.
Yeah. And they're just it kind of came down to, right, we got in some scrambles.
Yeah, that's it.
We both escape, and it came down third period. I get in on a really deep shot. He scrambles out, and he kind of caught me slacking. Like, I thought I was about to get stalemated. Like, he wasn't going to do anything. He did a little kneecap double, ran through me. I escape and just can't get at the point in time. But yeah, it was a fun match, and for me, it was like I was like, at the time I had like a 90% bonus rate at 133, and I wanted to get it, the best match I can get going into the NCAA tournament. I knew I was only going to get better from it, and right. So for me, it's always right, compete against the best competition you can, and I do think that gave me another like jump of energy and like training the last month of season. Like,
well, that's exactly what I thought. I thought Seth could jump the 41 if he wants and make a run.
Yeah.
Just put you in that thing. It's like, he's still there. That's cool. So now the big story is your coach leaves.
Yeah.
What's that? Did you know it's coming?
Yeah. So that was right. I go out. I win a national title, first one in school history in any sport. I'm on top of the world. Like, this is amazing. I remember even after, right, we're down, like, all the Jackrabbit fans there. Bono's giving a hoorah speech, and then we go back on to Brookings, and a couple days later, it's, hey, I'm leaving for Wisconsin.
Wow.
And yeah, at first I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you're leaving? We just literally had 12th place finish at a small school like this. Like,
Is that the best finish ever?
Ever. Yeah, like, we had no reason ever getting that high of a place at South Dakota State.
Yeah.
Like I got a year left. Like,
Yeah.
like you're my guy that gave me a second chance. Like, what do you mean you're leaving?
Yeah.
And so it was tough, but you know, give it some time. You know, you think about things,
Sure.
and it's like, you know, it's a great opportunity. You know, you are going to a Big Ten school that has a lot of resources.
Yeah.
Take care of your family a lot better with, you know, financially. Like, how can I really be mad about that?
Right.
You know, and
Right.
so I took a step back and let the emotions settle in. And, you know, at the end of the day, on their way out, I was like, hey, I wish you guys the best of luck. And, yeah, hope you do well at Wisconsin.
And how do you end up in that conversation, you know, later? Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't really even a thought at first because I'd already transferred. You can't transfer
Right.
twice. So it was just, you know, I'll finish up my senior year and then I'll figure out what I do next.
Right.
If it's Wisconsin, if it's staying here, if it's finding an RTC.
Right.
I'll figure it out after my senior year. And so it was just full focus on let's go get ready to win another national title.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
So going into your senior year, you feel good. You feel like you're the top dog. What's your senior year like?
Yep. So yeah, feel great. Getting ready to go. I actually wrestled one duel that year, and then I get a pretty bad injury.
Yeah.
And so and to preface it, I had a stress fracture in high school. Didn't take the time off I probably needed, so it kind of just wore down.
Yeah.
And so
different leg.
No, in my back.
Oh, your back.
Yeah, in my back. So I had a stress fracture. L4, L5 area, and yeah, kind of in high school when it happened, I had two different opinions from two different doctors. One was like, you need to put a brace on and not wrestle for 6 months.
Oh wow.
This is my junior year, and the team race was really close for state, so I wanted to be out there. So that's what the first doctor says. I go to another doctor. He's like, if you can tolerate the pain, you can wrestle through it.
Oh wow.
And so me being, you know, and the team's kind of giving me a little pressure. I'm like, all right. He said I could do it, and I maybe took a month off, and it still hurt pretty bad. And you know, right, that year at state was great. Like I was a heavy favorite going in, but then after back surgery, like I won in triple overtime the first round of some I don't know who.
Yeah.
And then I win 1-0. I ride a kid out, and then I win 3-2, and then I win in the finals by a point, and like just barely squeaked out that year. But yeah, I didn't let it heal right.
Yeah.
So it just grinded down at each other, and so instead of getting back and healthy, I let it progress, and with that in itself, you can live with that with it worn down like that, but it leaves you especially in wrestling, like now your vertebrae can slip forward. And so that's what happened in college. My vertebrae slips forward out of place. Disc gets crunched. Nerves are getting pinched. And so it was awful. And I tried to get, I was still at first. It was like, how do I get through this year?
Yeah.
I didn't wrestle for a month. I was swimming, like only doing that. Like it was like, you just need to figure out how to be ready for Big Tens. And I did for a month. I was rehabbing, swimming. I was doing everything to try to get better. But it's like, my vertebrae out of like it's nothing. And so eventually we just made the decision, like,
medical,
call it a year and let's have surgery. And so so that was the choice. And that was one of the most gruesome, tough surgeries.
I couldn't imagine.
And processes. Outside of getting in trouble, I mean, it might have been even harder to get through.
Oh yeah.
This whole thing mentally, but so I have a L4, L5 spinal fusion.
So it's completely fused.
Yep. So that's fused. Crazy thing about it, I never knew about this until like going into my surgery. They do it two different ways, but what they did on me, they went through my stomach, moved everything out of the way.
Oh man.
And then
that's a massive recovery.
Yeah. So then they did all the work through the front, and then they finished with screws in the back. So I have scars in the front and the back, and like I remember like they don't put your organs don't just get put
No.
back where they were supposed to be. So like my right side was like sticking out, my left side was weird, and I was like, wow. And I remember waking up like, I'm never gonna walk again.
Yeah,
Like, that's the way I felt. And like the first 24 hours in the hospital after surgery, it was like they were teaching me how to roll out of bed. Like I had to be like a log, and then I'd have to swing my body just to like get up and stand up. And so they were teaching me that. And like most painful, like you make even the slightest twist, it's like, oh, like you feel like you broke it all over again.
Oh my gosh, how long is that recovery?
Yeah, so they told me 6-7 months until you can get on the mat again, but a year and a half until it's healed up all the way. Like they said 6 and 7 months it should be pretty solid. But yeah, it was, and being the stubborn, didn't learn my lesson the first time, right? I was trying to get back out there in 3-4 months, but the first month was like I maybe stood up and walked a little bit just because they told me I'd get blood clots if I don't. But that was it. And then I was doing some grip stuff while laying there, but there was not much I could do at all for a month and a half and then 2 months. And yeah, it was terrible. I really honestly didn't think, like, I tried to stay positive, you know, like don't worry, it's part of the process. I'll be back. But it's like, man, this is the second time in my life that wrestling's taken away from me again. And
you feel like almost like I'm not supposed to be doing this.
Yeah. And it's like, right, wrestling, you can get out, like, get your endorphins out and get things going. And, you have a bad, day at school, right? I can go wrestle. And now it's like,
you can't do it.
I'm stuck there in my thoughts all day and I can't do anything to like kind of relieve it. And like I said, wrestling was kind of still the, how I kind of relieve things when I'm having a tough time. And so couldn't do that. And so as much as I tried, I went through a pretty bad depression there. Like I was on depression medicine and, tough spot. Like I said, I didn't think I was going to wrestle again for a while. Like it was like, I remember I would call my mom, my dad all the time. Like, there's no way that I can do this again. And even when I started getting back into it, I remember, like I said, I got back way earlier than like I started trying to get back way earlier. Yeah. And I was like helping out. I moved back to Minnesota actually at this time just because I need my family to help me and, with everything. And so I'm back there and I was like going into high schools, trying to wrestle high schoolers. I remember like I was doing freestyle one time and like the dude gutted me and like, oh man, I thought my back broke again. And I remember calling the doctor. I'm like, I'm an idiot. I wrestle. I know I shouldn't have. Like, I think it's broke again.
Oh my gosh.
And he was like, you would know if it's broke. Like the chances, like unless you got in like a car accident, like the chances that you actually, right, you can mess up the nerves a little bit and things. And he's like, but cut that out.
Yeah, don't do that no more.
Yeah. And I took maybe a week off. But so that was very tough. And once again, it's like I can't do anything for 3 months. I'm putting on a little weight now. And but right, I'd been there before, so the weight part wasn't as bad. Like I knew like, hey, stick to the plan. You'll get that back down. But right, when you get back on the mat, you're worried about your everything. Right. Yeah. If I get here, my back's gonna hurt, or I'm gonna do something, and so I'm very hesitant and not wrestling how I can wrestle. And
is that into your final year? Do you kind of have that?
And so to kind of go back, right? I medical year, and I graduate from South Dakota State, and then it's like
once you open you up to be able to go.
Yeah, so once you graduate, it's like you can go anywhere for grad school.
Oh,
and so I went into South Dakota State coach. I was like, hey, I wanna look at my options, and they weren't happy about that, and it's kind of like, we need you here, trying to sell me on staying, and they're basically gave me the ultimatum, like if you open up your options, I don't think we're gonna have you back here. And it's like, well, I still want to look around, see what's out there.
Yeah.
And so that was the decision I made, and right, I talked to a few schools, talked to a few coaches, but
it wouldn't automatically go back to Bono.
And that was right. That was the strong
pull
thought.
Yeah.
Right. Talking about it, thinking about it. Like,
did you guys have a pretty good connection, the two of you?
Yeah. Yeah. We were very close at South Dakota State. Like, he was. Yeah. It was like we had a really good friendship outside of just right, him being my coach. And so, yeah, we had a good connection, and he him and Reader, as soon as they could, they drove to my house and kind of visit, the first ones to visit me. And I was basically like, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in. And they had a really good, I got into the business school, and they have a really good master's program there. And, you know, it was a huge opportunity. So I ended up getting my master's at Wisconsin and finishing my senior year there.
Nice. Great senior year as well. And I thought it was I mean, incredible year. Back any issues?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely didn't look anywhere like I did pre-surgery, right? Like I said,
You were early though. I mean, that's not that much of recovery. I mean,
no, like it was probably 8 months.
Yeah.
And they told me a year and a half before. It's like really, really like, and really, I probably pushed that back. It was probably 2 years before it was really feeling good again. But yeah, it was. I wasn't what I was before, and then you throw on top of that, I made the decision to go 57 kilos during that season.
Yeah.
So you're cutting weight, you have a back cert, you know, it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, you like to push it, don't you? You do it all.
Yeah. Get tougher.
Right. This is what we tell ourselves. But
yeah, I just kind of I jump onto an idea and I kind of run with it sometimes. And so I you know, right away I'd beaten some guys at 57. I was like, I'm going 57. I'm gonna make the Olympic team and go get a medal. And so I committed to it and I did it, but it was terrible decision to make. I lost a lot of muscle. And you'd lose a lot of weight. All of a sudden, my back hurts 10 times worse than it did. And I'm wrestling 33 during college season, but I'm still trying to make 57. And it was a rough year. I lost Austin DeSanto and Sebastian Rivera,
both
both good guys. Beat them both too. So it was, man. But it was like I was pretty dominant before the surgery, and then this year I was squeaking out wins here and there, and so I didn't feel like myself. I knew it sucks when you know what you're capable of, but you physically just can't make it happen. So it was, I didn't have the most confidence at that time. All right, and the thing that sucked is like I made it down to 57. I wrestled really well. Like that was one of my best tournaments of the year. I went to the Bill Farrell. I beat Suriano, Tomasello, Darian Cruz, and that was, I was pretty confident, but then it's like, then I went, all right, I have this amazing tournament, then I go lose to Austin DeSanto the next week, and it's like, what happened? But it was like, I looked frail, like, I go back and watch the match, it's like, I looked frail and pale, and like, just like, it looked sickly out there, and so it weighed on my season, like I said, I wouldn't make that decision again, but you learn, you live and you learn, and
absolutely.
Back to the whole point of, it's better to just, put on weight, get as strong as you can, and focus on being a better wrestler. Yeah. And to bring in the whole injury aspect, that's another huge thing of why you shouldn't cut weight.
That's right.
Right? Like our guy Austin Gomez at Wisconsin, 33-pounder, he's having concussion issues, injury issues, goes up to 49, incredible season, no injuries. Right? Just completely because, different. Your body now has a little bit of fat to protect it, your joints, everything's just a little bit better. So it's like when you're dehydrated and have zero fat,
you can't.
Things can break like that. You're frail.
Absolutely. Well, you have a unique style of wrestling, and I mean, I love watching you wrestle because to me, you're like always creating and always being just it's unorthodox in some ways. What would you say is like keys to being a successful wrestler from your perspective? What, like, is it, did you spend a lot of time just kind of playing and because you got the rubber knees, your thing? I mean, obviously I don't know if you watched Kerry and that was kind of your thing from him, but you definitely, I literally thought you've been dead to rights in some situations where I'm like, he's getting scored on. And you just turn it around. Like what would you say is the key to your success in wrestling? How you become you?
And to be 100% honest, it was probably how stubborn I was growing up.
Okay.
Like at every level, I was, nobody thought I'd do well, and it was always, he can never win letting a guy out on your legs. And it was like, you sure about that? He can't get away with not moving his feet. You sure about that? And it was like, I'll figure out how to do it this way. Yeah. And as much as, people told me, it was like, I think I could do it, whatever I want to do. And I think that I can develop and I loved watching guys scramble, and I loved getting in the room and just rolling around and sparring and doing this. And it was like, I think that, I just respectfully disagree. Like I'm gonna try to figure this out, and I'm gonna, and it probably was a lot I just wasn't quick. I wasn't good at getting my legs back,
Right,
and so
But you were confident there because you've been there so much, you know.
Yeah, and so it was like every step of my career, it was like, there's no way he's gonna keep getting away. There's no way this guy's gonna make a world team letting guys in on his legs. There's no way he's right now. There's no way he wins a medal because he lets everybody in on his legs. It's like, all right. I mean, we'll see. I think I can do it.
Yeah, for sure. So I like that. I like you just said, just you find a way and you stay consistent and you don't divert from that. I mean, it's not, again, stubborn to a certain degree is a good thing, you know, especially when you know your strengths. I like that. What if you had to? I know this is a big question, but if you had to say wrestling has taught me this, and it's what I apply to life outside the mat and in the mat, give me just a couple pointers. Like, what has wrestling taught you and given you?
I think the biggest thing is resiliency, right? When you get knocked down, like it's so applicable to life, right? When you get knocked down, you don't see the results you want to right away, right? The only option you have is to get back up.
Yeah, that's right.
You can't stay down or you're done.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was a huge thing that, you know, through my life situations and wrestling that I became very resilient.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm not letting any obstacle in front of me ever hold me back.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the biggest things for wrestling. It was definitely resiliency. Like, you get back up, right?
Yeah. Then
you keep moving forward.
That's kind of your story, like you said. It's like it almost repeated itself over and over in your life. Us being men of faith, it's like there's something that had to happen. These things had to happen for you to become this person. Yep. It's almost like God was allowing us to continue to go through those things to have this outcome.
Yeah.
Do you see it that way now?
100%. And it's like, now when obstacles get thrown my way, I'm like, ooh, opportunity to get better, opportunity to grow.
I love it.
Right? Something good's going to come out of this.
Yeah.
Like, this might suck, but I bet you on the other side, something beautiful is waiting. And so,
for sure.
Right. Like, even I apply it to little things like, you know, the week going into world team trials, there was like crazy things going on. I had like this crazy rash pop up. I couldn't wrestle the whole week leading into it, and right, all this stuff. And right, for me, it was like, I remember I was talking to Ron. I was like, Satan's trying to bring me down. I gotta keep brushing off, moving forward. He's trying to keep me out of the world team trials.
That's good.
And so that's the way I kind of think. You know, when you know, I think that God's always got His plan and He's got His say in it. And
for sure.
You know, I always think that, right? This Satan's trying to throw some obstacles at me, but they ain't going to stop me.
For sure. And I've talked in this podcast with quite a few people, and I keep bringing this point up because I think it's true, and I always like to get the perspective of the person on the couch. Is I believe that all great things, all good things come through suffering. Yeah. I believe it's and I was just talking to Lauren before you, and she was the guest before you, and the one thing that she said was that she was talking about her suffering and going through, you know, the things that whatever. And we're like, you know, honestly, everybody runs away from that. But if you would just embrace that and push for it, everything that you want is on the other side of the I don't want to, you know? Yep. And so to me, I'm kind of like you. It's like when something happens, I'm like, well, let's see. There must be something really good, you know? Yeah. And so that's so cool that you've kind of worked that out, because you had the why me God moment a few times, but now it's like, okay, God, me, you know, exactly. It's different.
And it's like, shit, I just lost my train of thought. But what was I going to say? Give me 2 seconds.
Oh, here. You're good. While you're thinking on that one, I was going to say we need to get into the post-college, because that's a trip for you, because like you said, everybody says, Seth, he's a competitor, but he's not here. Yeah. And you keep shocking the world. Yeah. You know? So,
absolutely. Yeah. Let's dive in. I'm not going to remember now.
That's all right. If you might go back to it, but you keep shocking the world in the sense of, for me, I always know your game. I know, and I think everybody else does, but I think it's those things like you said, people get to his legs, or, you know, he scrambles too much, or whatever be the case. Have you always felt like the underdog?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love it. And like, right, one of my favorite, I watched Rocky all the time growing up.
Yeah, me too.
One thing you realize about Rocky, he might not win every single time. Right. And that's where it comes in. Like, I'm a competitor. Like, I'll go to wrestle a guy at 65 kilos. I'll go up a weight. I'll go wrestle here. And it's more about the progression and continuously getting better. And so that's always been my mindset. And like, you look at every level, right? I never started, like, I wasn't a guy coming into college that you're like, he's going to be the best guy. Right. Going into high school, it was like, he's going to be okay. Maybe. Right? He's going to college. Maybe he'll All-American. Right now I'm going to maybe he'll make some national teams or something.
It's interesting.
And so it's like every level, it's like, all right.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what we can do.
I like the Rocky analogy because I can see it. Yeah, for sure. And I definitely, it's one of those things where does it make you feel like you're not respected, or do you just not care?
It's kind of mixed. Like, I like it. I like I like people saying, you can't do something. There's something about that gets you pretty fired up. Right, and I do have people that do support me. So there's people on both sides of it
for sure.
But right, if we're being honest, there was maybe a couple % of people that thought I could beat Dayton Fix. You know, if you would have asked people and when I went into college that I was going to be a national champ, they would have told you no. Right, when I won Fargo as a freshman, right, I remember guys on my team calling me like, you just won Fargo, Seth, like little fat guy last year just won Fargo. Funny. And right, it's been like that every step of the way, but right, that makes it fun.
It does.
And that's kind of going back to like right, when obstacles happen or when it's hard or right when you have to really climb that ladder, you enjoy it and you appreciate it so much more, right? I feel like if I would have broke onto the scene right away, maybe when I did win, it wouldn't feel as good or it wouldn't mean as much. And so for me, having, I've been on the senior level for a few years now, and right, it's been up and down and slowly figuring it out, and right, that makes it fun, and it makes the journey. I love the journey of it. As much as right, it's awesome to be on the world team. The journey of trying to figure it out has been, it's worth it
for sure,
regardless.
So like you mentioned, you've been on this hunt, for the world team for a minute now. This year, it seemed like things just they just came together. What was different?
I made a lot of changes, kind of in my training and my diet, and right, and a big thing that kind of pushed to that, and right, I went down to 57, which threw me off for a while, building right. So, and last year when I wrestled the world team trials, it's like my wedding was a month before that.
Yeah, that's serious.
And so I go have a wedding and right, probably not eating, doing the diet or training as hard as I should have. And I go wrestle, but I kind of made a lot of changes and decided like, it's now or never. Like you got to go give this your very best try, do everything you can. And with that, in the past in college, I got away with it a little bit. In high school, it was like, you could eat a little, you can eat pretty bad and out-train your diet. You can stay up late. You can do these little things, right? I can get away with it. And, right, those are all lies that you tell yourself, right?
Absolutely.
And, right, when you tell yourself these lies, right, you start believing it, and you really, truly think you can do that stuff. So that's one big thing. I was like, you got to stop lying to yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you can't eat a bag of potato chips 2 months before you're about to wrestle and think you're going to be at your best.
Yeah.
Like, do everything you can to be at your very best when you step out there. And then if you lose, all right, we got to get better at wrestling. But right, you haven't yet done that. And so that's what I told myself. I was like, every little thing I'm going to do the best I can.
I like that.
And so recovery wise, sleep wise, training wise, and a big thing, right, for me was training, right? I was a guy that go in the room and wrestle live.
You just go hard.
Just go. Yeah. Right? There was no slow it down. Like that was it. Like the last
that's
6
it.
years before or 5 years before this year, I would get in that room, and it's probably not the best thing for your body, but I would get in there, and it starts maybe a little bit slow, but within 5-10 minutes, we're going basically close to live.
Wow.
And that's the way I train. And then I'd get done with that, and I'd sprint and bike and go hard, and that was it. That was my training.
Wild. It's surprising that you weren't hurt more.
Yeah.
Especially with the dieting down like that.
Yep.
Yeah. So this year you've learned to recover better? Is it
everything's different this year.
Yeah.
Like I came across actually a book. It's called Win by Dr. James DiNicolantonio. And he's actually a former wrestler, doctor now, but he kind of broke down. The book's all about like how to be the very best athlete, like high level athlete you could be. and he breaks down everything. He breaks down how you should train, right? There's 6 different types of training that if you want to be your best, you need to hit, right? You need to hit high interval training. You need to hit zone 2 training where you're going 60, 70%. You need to go to your max, right? You need to, right there. There's 6 different ways
that's interesting.
Right, strength, right? There's so many things that you aren't, right? You're always in 100% mode,
right?
And doing that all the time, right? Yeah, if I wrestled a 45-minute match, I bet you I'd win every time. But
yeah, exactly.
Right? That's not doing that is not equivalent to go wrestling a 6-minute match. And so now it was like I do a lot, like almost all the conditioning I do now is 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Like I simulate if I'm doing sprints, if I'm jump roping, if I'm
match.
Everything's exactly 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't need to do a 45-minute grind thing, right?
Yeah.
So that was big. Doing a lot of high interval training, doing more consistent strength training, and slowing it down and doing technique.
Yeah.
Like really, really developing your craft. Like, yeah, I'm pretty good at thinking on the fly and sparring and trying new things.
But you're already good at that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that's already your good point.
Yeah.
You know, it's the other stuff that you can develop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that, right, everything changes here kind of as far as training. And, and then diet was another huge thing. Like, that really helped as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I've seen, you've seen a kind of progression in just you as an athlete, because like I said, I always knew Seth could scramble. I always knew that you could be funky and but it's you're dynamic. You're a lot more dynamic now. It seems like you're getting off your shots cleaner. Your angles are different. And I think that's probably just a testament to what you're saying. It's like it's learning the science of it now, you know. But it's fun to watch. Do you feel like you're at the top of your game right now?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm going to be in a few, 3-4 weeks. I'll be even a little bit better. But I'm pretty, I'm confident with where I'm at. And right, even add another thing that right in college I was probably stubborn and overconfident, but I didn't watch any film in college. Like I was like, I'm gonna do what I do to this guy, and right, I was able to, like I said, I can make in match adjustments pretty well. But you go watch college, I got taken down first a lot of matches.
Right, yeah.
And it's like I was getting taken down by the guy's best move, right? The move that he's hit 20 times.
Of course.
Right, you go sit down and watch 2 of his matches, you're gonna know that he has 1 attack.
Yep, that's it. Yeah.
And he just hit you in it, right? Like,
yeah.
And so that, like, being a coach helped a lot with that, because I was breaking it down for my guys, and then all of a sudden I see, like, dang, they shut that guy's best thing down pretty easy.
Yeah.
Just because he was aware of it.
Yeah.
And so then I finally was like, why wouldn't I, want to know that?
Yeah.
And so I've done a lot more as far as film and studying guys, and right, it's simple to, right, if this guy only attacks or has 2 attacks here and here, this is what I have to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Why do you think? I mean, because obviously you're a stubborn wrestler.
Yeah.
Are you a stubborn person?
Yeah, I bet most people in my family would definitely say that.
My theory is, and I tell people all this all the time, is like how you wrestle is who you are.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of see that. But now as you're evolving as a man, and I want to talk about your wife here in a bit as well, but as you're evolving as a man and probably being married and stuff like that, you're growing, right? And so naturally you're growing. I think it's so cool because what I've noticed in the sport of wrestling is that you see somebody like yourself, you start seeing this person grow as a man, and he's a husband now. But now what's crazy about it affects his wrestling. Yeah. And then vice versa. If you go to the match and you find out that you're short-tempered in this environment, you can see that in your life too. Yeah. So it's a very cool way for us to work it out. Yeah. Are you seeing that? Do you feel the same way as a man as you are as a wrestler right now? You're in a good spot. You're growing.
Yeah. Just a lot of maturity, right?
Yeah.
And just the one, I forget what book it came from, but a big like thing that stuck with me. It was about what was it? Confident humility. Right? Finding out like I believe that I'm gonna go win a world title. Right? I might not be able to do it today, but I'm gonna be ready when the time comes.
Right.
I have the confidence that I can get there. I might not have the tools or things right now.
Yeah.
Right. To be a 2024 Olympic champ, I know I can do it.
Yep.
I'm not there yet.
Right.
And that's kind of that confident humility is knowing that, right? Just being conscious of you can always get better in a way.
Yeah.
And as much as I think I'm doing things right in this moment, I might not be.
Right.
And don't be afraid if new information comes forward or you find out some new things, right? It's okay to say, hey.
Yeah.
Right, and that's where I'm not as stubborn now. It's like
Right.
I'm able to bring in, and maybe you should try this type of training. Maybe this should switch up in your diet. Maybe, right? And I'm always open to learning new things and having people's opinions.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, right? I'm confident in where I'm going, but maybe I don't have the tools quite yet, or maybe there's something that can help me a little more than
Right.
what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. And the cool thing about it is your inventory in your life now, where everything else was kind of, it seemed like, as you're growing up in whatever, we all are that way. It's like we're almost one tracked,
Yeah.
Now it's kind of like everything's bleeding into everything,
Yeah.
and we're aware of it, So I got to talk about the open. You go out there, you set it on fire. Do you feel good? Do you what's that like?
Yeah, so U.S. Open is the one I lost in the semis.
I know, but you
And-
kind of wrestled really well though. Like I thought so. I was there.
Yeah, I did all right. Yeah.
You didn't like. I mean, you lost in the semis to
Megaludus, yeah.
yes, which he had a tournament, But I still think that you look good.
Yeah.
What's your mindset though after you drop that match? Like, what do you do with that?
Yeah, I mean that was
Because you're trying to win. You're winning. You think
Yeah.
you're winning.
yeah, and right, I dropped that match to Nico,
Yep.
and right, I go back, I watch some film, I break it down, and really it was because he took the hand fight to me the whole match,
Right. Yeah.
right, and really you look at it, right, there was one cheap tilt he got on me, that was really the only points of the match, and when I went right at the end of the match to try to get the takedown, I was within a second of getting it.
Yeah.
And
I thought you got it
so-
from where I was.
So it was like, right, I knew what I needed to do.
Yeah.
I knew I'm gonna get this guy. I know it's the little adjustments, right? Next time we wrestle, I'm gonna take the dogfight to him. Like
Yeah.
my hands are gonna get on him before his hands get
Yeah.
on me every single
Yeah.
time and every tie.
Yep.
And that's kind of that was kind of the big adjustment that I took from really for every match, everything I
Yeah.
wrestle now. And we tie. It's funny because we talk about that a lot at this camp this week, and the last OT or camp out here in Colorado Springs is really about dictating, right? And getting your stuff right. You're
Right.
the one dictating everything,
Yep.
right? When you get, and it's just lazy when you're not doing that, right? And that's that match. I was a little bit lazy, right? I was overtying every time. I was never getting inside. And he's moving me around.
Were you looking for something? Is that why, or was that the game plan with him? Because it did look like you're kind of like that match looked different than the other matches. It's like you're.
I think I was surprised by how like he would friggin' off the whistle leap,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Leap
yeah,
at
yeah,
his
yeah.
ties, and caught me a little bit off guard, and like I didn't adjust quick
Yeah.
enough, and right, but right, the whole match it was like, all right, it's a right. I've never wrestled a 0-0 like first period or 1-0 first period.
Yeah.
I wrestled one that match,
Yeah.
right, and I tried to win like this tactical
Yeah.
match, and that's not me, right?
Yeah.
I'm freaking make it a dogfight
Yeah.
and make
Yep.
sure there's some points on the board.
Yeah. But coming out of that, you have that in your back pocket. Do you think that helps you going forward? Because you
Absolutely.
looked as probably as different as you looked at the Open in that match. Like you're always the guy bringing the fight. You look like you were ready to throw blows coming, Final X.
Yeah.
Like you were ready.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. So that one, and then right at that first round of World Team Trials, I almost blow it there. I'm down by
Yeah.
9. Right, I get through that, and
I can't believe that match.
yeah.
What were you like? Were you panicked at all?
I mean, if you start panicking, right?
Yeah,
you
true.
lose. So it was like in the moment, it's like all I remember thinking is, you got to get on top.
Yeah.
Like you like. I remember, I don't know what it was. I felt pretty good going into the match, and then when I went out there, it was like I felt like cinder blocks were on my feet. And
Oh shoot.
And I don't know, and I still don't know why. I don't know if I did something a little different with my food
Right.
or what it was, or who knows.
Was
Like
it
I
just
said,
that one match that you felt that way?
Yeah, and like I said, like I didn't wrestle much that week because I had a pretty bad rash going
Right.
on and just got it cleared.
I can't. Yeah.
And so so I don't know if it just right. Usually I do some simulation matches the day before, so maybe it was I hadn't done a match in
Yeah.
a couple days or whatever. But man, yeah, I felt like I could not move my feet. And then that super controversial, right? He got in a high crowd. He picked me up on the edge. I crotch lift.
Yep.
Right? They call it 1 for him. Right? They challenge it. Everybody thinks I'm about to get 4, and then
Yeah.
they give him 4.
Yes.
And that's an 8 points. That's an 8-point swing.
Huge. Huge.
That's not, you go from
Yeah.
thinking you're going to get 4 points to all of a sudden he gets 4.
Yeah.
It's an 8-point swing in a match. And so, right, that that was tough. And mentally, right, I tried to put that aside, like, hey, 1 point at a time. And right, he was up by 9, and he was trying to pop through on a gut to finish the match. Ended up getting the reversal. And I remember I was like, it's now or your dream's done until next year.
Yeah.
Like, it's now or never. And I went hard for that. I got my trap arm and got just enough turns, 113-12. Yeah.
It was a anxiety-filled match for everybody. I'm sure your wife was losing her mind.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, from that point forward, it seems like you just kind of hit your stride. You became, probably, again, like you said, just kind of not being able to practice and do the things. Your rash was gone, though, at that point. It just...
So I got it. It was like non-contagious.
Just a random...
I forget what it... So what they said is I think I had a pretty bad... I was sick like the week before. And it was like a post-viral rash. And it stayed around for like 2 months.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so it was like... It was weird. It didn't itch. It didn't... Right, but...
Yeah.
Right, I didn't know at first, so I was off the mat.
Right, yeah.
And I wasn't doing, wrestling like...
For sure.
That... Yeah, so it wasn't anything like contagious or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a post viral, and it was kind of it popped up out of nowhere. It was like the week of, I was like, there's no way I'm gonna get cleared to wrestle. And luckily the doctor's like, it's non contagious, you're good, I got you a note. And
that's good.
Yeah.
Another one of those things, man, like putting you on the ropes, Yeah. So you go down there, you win that, you come up, you got the fix match.
Yep.
What, like, you guys have obviously, you've wrestled prior to this. This is the first time that you get it, you get him, right?
Yeah. So we wrestled at the World Team Trials the year before. He tagged me in the beginning of the second period.
Yep. So, is it a monkey on the back? Are you thinking about that match at all? How is it for you?
Yeah, and I like to look at the positives of the thing. I go back, I watch that match, and all the points he scored were kind of on me just making dumb error. Like, I was dictating. Like, I got in on my opportunities. Yep. The first 6 points where I grabbed a 2-on-1, he blew through me, gutted me.
Yeah.
That was the first 4. Then I grabbed a 2-on-1, he did the same exact thing.
Yep.
All right, so there's 6 points. Next one, I'm in on a single, about to finish, and right on the edge, he does some.
Yeah.
Gets me.
He's really strong, so he likes to kind of counter.
Yeah.
And so, but you 2-on-1 him in the match then too. You went right there. Yeah, you went back to it.
Yeah, and it was, if you're gonna do the 2-on-1, you better keep your far leg back. Like, when I was doing it and my right leg was way far, I heard him shout, like the coach was shouting, if he's gonna keep it back, go for the near one or something like that. And that didn't work as well. Yeah. I think he maybe got into a single leg off at once. But yeah, it was like, I watched my match of me getting teched, and I saw some good things there. Like, hey, good. Your opportunities weren't there, or were there. You just got to be stubborn and capitalize on every chance.
Yeah. You drop the first match, and you go back to the drawing board, but it's competitive.
Yeah. And we walked off, right? It was a 5-5 match, and to be honest, I wasn't aware of the rules, so I thought I won.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I thought I was winning. They were yelling that I needed to score, so I figured it out with like 5 seconds left. Right. But he got a caution during the match. We both had a 2 and 3 1-pointers. We had the same score, but the caution beats it even if I score less. And whatever reason, I should have been on top of my rule book game there, but so I didn't go like crazy. There's 15, 16 seconds left, and I kind of stood there, and then until I heard them say you need to score, and then but I walked off the match like. I wasn't tired. I was ready to go. I remember my buddy was like, shot me a text, and I was like, I'm ready to do the next match now. But there was a huge break, and I'm feeling good. And I remember looking over, I could tell he was pretty tired, exhausted. I'm like, I'm gonna do this. Yeah. Like I'm gonna do this.
Yeah. I noticed, Dayton's a good dude, but I noticed a visible difference between the two of you, and I was like, he's struggling. He expelled a lot of energy that first match, and he was trying to muscle you and pull you around and stuff like that, and you could just see it kind of going down. And the next match, obviously, it was obvious, and then by the third, he literally was done. Tough kid, but you had the number that day. I mean, how's that everybody second guessed you. Everybody thinking no. You win down at the trials. You come up here, you beat the guy that nobody thinks you beat. Where does that put you?
Grateful.
Yeah, amen.
Grateful. Yeah, just first thing was just giving the glory to God.
Yeah, that's right.
Like I said, like I know I wouldn't do anything without him, and so I mean, it was just that's all I could think about was how grateful I was, because even getting to Stillwater was crazy obstacles there too, and it's like
you get a flight situation.
That was crazy, and getting out there, and it was like, thank you, Jesus.
Yeah, so
like,
good.
This was not me, this was you.
Yeah.
And so that was my first thought.
So good. Well, I'm super glad that you're a part of the team. It's fun to watch you wrestle. I know that you're the guy that's going to go out there and give it all, and it's always exciting for me as a fan. I can't, go off this podcast without talking about your amazing wife that's also a wrestler. Yeah. Give me a little bit of that story real quick. How'd you guys meet? What's the background there?
Right. And talk about good things that come out of bad situations, right? There's a good chance I don't meet my wife if I don't get put in jail, right? And
really?
So it's, right, because she lived at South Dakota State University, and there was zero chance that if that didn't happen, that I'd be at South Dakota State University.
That's true.
Right? I don't even know why I would have been in South Dakota ever if it wasn't for that. Like, I don't know how our paths would even have crossed. So it was, right? I met my wife through it. So she was there at South Dakota State when I got there, and I didn't really talk to her too much right away. I was probably there a year and a half, 2 years, and we developed a little bit of like the friendship where we talk, hang out here and there, and I just remember like kind of out of nowhere, like noticing like how hard she worked, her dedication, like seeing her chase down their goals, and I was like, that's really cool. That's really cool. And the fact that she's doing it in at the time a guy dominated sport, right? She's wrestling through her high school season with all these guys and competing against guys, and I'm like, wow, she's tough. She's pretty cool. And like I said, we started talking a little bit and hanging out, and she wasn't really going for it too much at first. She was like, okay, cool, like whatever. And I told her I liked her, and actually for a while she didn't even talk to me after that. But it was all right. I was like,
played at the seat.
We got to play the long game here.
That's
and
right.
So we kind of rekindled our friendship a little bit later and started hanging out, and I think she noticed because my faith and the way I treated people, and we kind of started talking a little more, and she seemed interested, and I think that a part of it, right, her past relationships, it was a lot of guys that didn't treat her right, and she just kind of noticed how nice and how I treated her, my faith in God, and I told her, when I date somebody, it's to marry them. And that was a big thing for me. Like, I'm not just dating around. Like, I like you, and
That's right.
And so she gave me a chance, and the rest was history.
Yeah. Well, it's a funny story. We were up at the super matches in Detroit, and my wife went to the restroom, and your wife was in there getting ready to come out to go wrestle, and my wife talks to anyone. And so she's like, oh, hey, and she's like, I think she asked, like, are you here to watch someone? She's like, oh, I'm about to wrestle. And my wife's like, oh my gosh, you're about to wrestle. And so they had this cool conversation. My wife comes back in, and she's like, I just met this awesome girl. She is so sweet. And she goes, oh, there she goes. I was like, that's awesome. And so ever since when we left there, she goes, and I would mention you. She goes, you mean my best friend's husband? Not you. She goes, your wife, her best friend. And my wife really thinks the world of her, just because you can tell a lot when you first have a conversation with someone. And she just said she was so sweet and just so open to. She's about to wrestle, and she's engaging in a conversation with my wife. So that's the only interaction I know with your wife. But I can tell also from your all social and just your support of one another. It's just a cool thing, man, for sure. I know I married good, and it seems like you did as well.
Yeah, and that, that's what I love about it. She got right. She's so tough out there. She's dedicated and does her thing, but it's like she's got the biggest heart.
Yeah,
and it's even been cool recently. She started a girls wrestling club.
That's cool.
And right, she's given that same like to every girl, and right, you can tell that she truly cares about every single person. Like you see a lot of coaches, and you get around people, and it's right. They like the people that are doing well, and You know, they don't have patience with them, but she pours her heart and soul into every single one of them, and so that's just how she is as a person. So I'm
Yeah.
very, like I said, very, very blessed to have her. And right, she's tough when she needs to be tough, and
That's good.
besides that, she's got a big heart.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, it's fun to watch you guys on the outside, for sure. And I have a few closing questions here. One, if you're speaking to a group of high school kids and giving them advice about the sport of wrestling, what would you say to them?
So yeah, that's a good question. I think that I would say, have you heard? You've obviously heard the quote? Yeah, fall in love with the process.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I would say is fall in love with your process, right? Not just fall in love with the process. Fall in love with your process, and right, that's about. And to do that, right, you really got to let go of the result.
Yeah.
Right, you got to forget about the wins and losses. Right, I know that's big. That's especially you want to win, but you got to let go of that, and you got to focus on your process. And I think a big thing that hurts high schoolers confidence wise is I put in all this work and I look over at my teammate who didn't, and he's winning.
Yeah.
Right? He's kicking butt and he's doing all the wrong things.
Yeah.
Right, and that's hard.
It is.
Right, I was there. That right in high school, I had all these kids that were unbelievable, and I felt like I was working so much harder, doing all this, and it's like focus on, don't look at other people's grass, right? Water your grass, right? Focus on yours. And so fall in love with your process and focus on, right, what can you do in your area? What can you do in your life to get you to where you want to be?
Yeah.
Right? Is there a small area where you can be a little, I don't care what they're doing. I don't care, right? In your little area, right? What can you do to continue to improve?
It's good.
Right? And like I said, the two things, right? Don't focus on anyone else and don't focus on the end goal.
Yeah.
Focus on the journey.
That's good. I like that. Make sure you put that into practice. That whoever's listening, that's good advice for anybody. The other question I have here is, and it's a tough one, but it's also it's unique to us. But what would you, if I had asked you, what's the meaning of success to you? What does success mean to you? What's a definition of success?
There's a lot of different routes I think of. The first thing that comes to mind is success to me is just always living in a way that glorifies God.
That's
and
good.
That's for me, that's the biggest thing. Like my prayer before I go out there and wrestle every time isn't, hey, help me win, right? It's right. No matter what happens out there, Lord, I pray that I can carry myself in a way that's glorifying to you. And that's what I think success is.
That's good.
I think somebody that goes out there, gets their butt kicked, and can walk off and still give the glory to God is just as successful as the person that, or more successful than the person that goes out there, gets their hand raised, and I did it, right? Right. And I think, right, it's hard, right? Especially when you see that success, it's hard to, right? You don't always think right away, God got me here. It's easy to start, I did work really hard. I did do these things, and right, you start giving yourself too much credit. And so for me, success is always giving the glory back to God and knowing how much He's blessed you.
Yeah, that's good. I love that definition. If you were writing a book on success and you had to put three things that, you just said success is to give glory to God, what three things would you say that you would put in there for people to have to do to experience that type of success? Is it prayer? Is it meditation? Is it devotion? Is it reflection? Like how do you be successful in that way?
Yeah. Three things. Right. I think one that kind of falls in line with giving the glory to God is, right, your relationship with God, but consistency.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Consistency, right? And right, motivation's not always going to be there. You're not always going to be able to be disciplined, but figuring out how can I be consistent?
Yeah.
Right. And that's right. For my spiritual life, for my wrestling, for everything. That's the biggest thing, right? Yep. I know if I want to have the best relationship with God, it's not about spending 3 hours every single day. It's about being consistent.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? If I want to be the best wrestler, it's not about going in the room and like I used to do and wrestling hard and being in there so much, right? Consistency.
Yeah.
Small things add up over time. And so, right, consistency is number one. Resiliency is probably number two, right? You obstacles are coming your way.
That's right. Yep.
Right? Figure out how you can turn those obstacles into challenges that you got to overcome.
Yeah, I like that.
Right? And so when you look at it that way, you become resilient and right? Every obstacle is an opportunity. How can I get better from this?
That's good.
So we got consistency, resiliency, and last thing I'd say is just self-belief. Right? You got you do those things and you don't believe in yourself,
Yeah.
right? You're nowhere.
That's right.
It's hard, and
It's good.
I think that my faith gave me self-belief a lot, right? It kind of like I said, it all kind of ties together.
Yeah.
But whatever it is for you, it might not be the same as it is for me.
Right.
You got to find out, how can you fully 100% believe every time you step out there that you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Or if you're going to go start a new business, right, you
Yeah.
better have some self-belief.
That's good. That's
right.
good.
Because as soon as you start doubting,
Yep.
right, things are going to go downhill.
That's good. I love those three. Those are awesome. Wrestling question here. Your Mount Rushmore of wrestlers. Like, it could be 1, 2 guys. It could be all. You could be 5. I like to know where people put people in their life of wrestling.
Yeah. Man, that's a good question. I actually really haven't thought about that too much. Right. I mean, I like the guys I get to be on the world team
Yeah.
with. I'll say JB.
Yeah.
I think what he's done is spectacular, and
Yeah.
and right, how he takes care of his body and compete and at such a high level. Like he's really beating time out
Yeah.
here. It's incredible, and he'd be my pick right now
For sure.
I think you give it 10 years or 6 years or whatever, Kyle Snyder's going to be in that conversation.
Yeah.
I think he's also a guy that, right, it's crazy. He's the same age as me, and I feel like he's so much older.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
things that he's already done.
Right.
And so I think he's going to be up there. Like I said, I'm probably picking guys that I get
That's
to know
all right.
and
That's okay.
be on the team with, but those two. And outside of that, for me to pick my Mount Rushmore, I like, I got to know these guys, and just the people they are and the impact they have on the people around them
Yeah.
is unbelievable,
Yeah.
right? You don't, a lot of high level people aren't that like these guys are every day, like at camp, right? We're just talking like normal, right? They don't think they're better than anybody. They don't,
You're so
hold
right.
themselves any
Yeah.
other way, right? These are down to earth guys
Yeah.
that genuinely want to help the people
Yeah.
around them,
Yeah.
right? JB's in there with the guy that he had to wrestle at Final X, helping him get better.
It's incredible.
Right? There's no
Yeah.
egos there, and it's cool. It's really special.
Yeah, you guys got a group of people right now that I mean, it just, to me, it just blows my mind, the humility and the love and the respect in that room. I mean, obviously we're in a sport where those things, is kind of common more so, but man, with the amount of talent in that room, you would think you get a lot more ego. It's just, I mean, I'm sure it's in there somewhere, but from the outside looking in, it's like, bro, these guys are all great,
Well, and it's crazy. You do see, right, guys make it pretty far, can have an ego, but those guys that kind of break through, right, aren't afraid to help people. They're not, right, because you're learning too, and you're, right, and ego's just going to hold you back a little bit, right,
for sure.
from reaching your fullest potential. So, honestly, at this camp, I don't think there's never ego involved, right?
Yeah.
You see even at the college level all the time, it's like, I don't want our team to train with them.
Yeah.
I don't want these guys around, and it's like, why not?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't you want the
best,
right? These two guys to be training, like they're only both gonna improve,
right?
And, right? It's never gonna hurt.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the last question I have for you is, if it could be somebody that's a wrestler, a coach. It could be someone that was in the sport and then turned business. But if you could put somebody in that seat that you think would bring value to people that would be listening, with the principles that we know is in this sport, who would it be? This is my call out section. Who you calling out?
Wow, that's a good question. There's a lot of people jumping into my mind. You said inside of wrestling, inside. Like
it could be a combat sport person, a coach, but they could also, like I said, been a high school wrestler, but turned business person. But because of their discipline and things like that, they found success.
I always flash back to my original youth coach, Rudy James. He still goes out there, competes at the veterans level, and he's bringing home, medals and things
That's
like
awesome.
that still. But like I said, the things he did for me when I was young, and being able to watch him still out there scrapping and stuff. Yeah, I think he has really, really amazing. And, to jump back to the youth coaching thing, I think that's one of the most important things in wrestling. Right? They are the people that are responsible for making people fall in love with the sport.
Yep.
Right? They're responsible for bringing in new athletes, new wrestlers.
Yep.
Right? Nobody else has to deal with that.
Right.
And they're responsible for building that core base for people.
Yeah.
Right? If people don't have this base, they're going to go right from the youth level to middle school or high school,
Yeah.
And now the high school coach can't develop because the youth coach didn't do a good job.
That's right.
And so he always did, as much as I said we had a lot of guys move in, he coached some amazing Apple Valley wrestlers that went up and did some really good things.
Cool.
And like I said, it was always with love, and he poured his heart and soul into to us, and it's cool to see him still doing it.
Yeah, it's cool.
Right? When you're passionate about something, you love it, you keep doing it.
Yeah.
And so, I think that a
That'd be
guy
cool.
like that, picking his brain about how he impacts his athletes would be really cool.
I like that for sure. Well, I always kind of close this podcast out this way. Again, I mentioned a few times, but I'm a man of faith as well. And part of the giftings I believe that the Lord has given me is discernment, right? In a sense of encouragement. And I tell people I can read their mail, but there's no point in that. It's about telling people what we see in them and feel in them, right? Like I'm a big feeling guy. Like I feel people. I know you're that way. You know, people of faith have that intuition. So I just like to kind of speak over people. But I would say, man, what I see in you is this kid that has skirted the lines, and found his path, right? And that is on the outside looking in. There's been people, like we talked about many times, that have doubted, but you've stayed consistent in who you are. And I think that that's one of your strongest things, is that who Seth is, and you've been pulled in many directions, this way, that way, but you've always found success back being who you were created to be. And so God always usually gives me like a Bible character when I think about and to speak over someone. So I went back to the story where you have Elijah that's calling down. There's a situation, and there's this mass drought going on, and they're doing things all this way, and they're trying to convince everybody that this is the way. Well, obviously, we know the story is that he uses a thing that they're lacking to bring glory to God. And in the midst of all of the doubters, he glorifies his God. And I think it was shown to me is like you're put on this stage to not just obviously win, but to prove people wrong in the way that God wants you to do it. That you are on the stage that you're going to be changing people's minds to the Lord, right? It's there's an impact that you're going to have, and that even in the drought, even in the struggle, you're going to be turning people that way, man. And that's your strength. It's just staying true to who you've been called to be. And I love it, man. I'm here for it. I appreciate it. Your social stuff, man, I watch it. It's inspiring and encouraging. And I'm thankful that you're a man after God's own heart. And keep doing you, dude. Even in the drought, I promise you God's going to make you stand out among the unbelievers. I thank you for all that you do. And thank you for doing this podcast, dude.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on and just getting the time to talk. And it's always good to do this. And, if it even helps one person out there, I'm glad that I got to have these conversations with you.
That's it, brother. Well, I appreciate you, and keep fighting for success for sure. All right.
Yep,
all right, brother. I'm going to give you 5 and we're going to call it. Appreciate
all my life. If it looks too hard, you try it. Your body says no, you defy it. If it's a better way, you apply it. If you lost your way, you find it. Be ground and don't hide it. And if you see evil, you fight it. All my life, the soul survives. The soul survives. The soul survives. All my life.